arsenal, which is a menu of lies, half-truths, and excuses. And predictably, that is exactly what is happening in the past few days. They are a party, this party has this history of doing this, so it was no surprise to us. But many people who may not be aware of this may fall prey to the last-minute shenanigans. And so one of the things I want to do today at this press conference is to take you through some of the things that have become central to their campaign in the last few days and point out how duplicitous they are and how dishonest they have been. So on June 6th, the chairman of the PNC said in an article in the Waves that gerrymandering will impact on APNU at local government elections. You would recall that I said that they played their hands too early when they contested, one, the voters list and its veracity, and the Chief Justice threw that out. And secondly, they contested the boundaries, that APNU had illegally changed the boundaries, and that too was thrown out by the court. And I said that the historic thing is that they use those two things as excuses. So now, even ignoring the fact that both cases were thrown out by the court, this is what the chairman of the party said. We will not get an overall victory in terms of the number of NDCs, but we will win in the populated areas because they are gerrymandering the boundaries. So even when Vulcan changed the boundaries in 2018, and all that happened now was that boundaries were changed back to the pre-2018 period, mostly. Even when Vulcan changed those boundaries in the 2018 elections, we won the overwhelming number of local government bodies across the country. So it's a total lie. So he is saying they would not have an overall victory in terms of the number of NDCs because of the gerrymandering of the boundaries. It's a lie. Never happened even when Vulcan changed the boundaries. They never had an overwhelming majority in NDCs. And he said, in 2025, we cannot gerrymander the boundaries, therefore they will win the elections. So now already starting to make excuses for the massive defeat that they will face. If you do not contest 25 of 80 local government elections, of the 80 the local areas, and you don't contest more than half of the 610 seats, then how can you win a majority of the areas? It's because of your no contest and because you're doing badly. And this comes from the chairman of a party, and we let it pass. We report on it. The Demerara Waves even reported it without even pointing out that it's utter rubbish, nonsense. Only someone who has impaired capabilities would believe this. And this is from the chairman of that party, believing that people will just buy this excuse again. And this is not new. This is the typical thing for the PNC. They always have excuses. It's lists, it's the voters list now, it's the gerrymandered boundaries that will cause them not to win the majority. So in the last few days, I've seen a number of things being said, particularly trying to excite fear in the residents of the major towns in Guyana. Now, clearly, they're very worried about what's happening in the city and in New Amsterdam and Linden in particular. Because when they go to these areas, they're not getting the reception that they traditionally got, largely because people are aware of what they're doing. So I watched their candidate going to Plum Park to campaign. He went in a vehicle, it's on social media. From the back of his vehicle, he was speaking, no one was there, he parked his vehicle. Now Plum Park is an APNU stronghold. And then said that these trench crappos, the PPP trench crappos, will come. They're not trench crappos, they're house crappos. We're trench crappos. So the trench crappos will come and try to take your community away, our community away. And a few people there practically chased him out, said, leave the area. You were a councillor in the last, we appointed you a councillor in the 2018 elections. We didn't see you back. You never came into the area. Now you come at the back of a vehicle with a pickup and telling us about trench crappos. So people didn't show up. So they're encountering this sort of issue everywhere. Everywhere. And therefore, they have to step up on the campaign of fear. They have nothing positive to say to people because they've been there all these years, 50-something years, and couldn't do anything for people and neglected their communities too. So the fear element is the only way they're hoping to drive the voters out. And they know that it worked well in the past, so they are busy inventing their lies. So it starts off with the vendors, and I thought by now they will drop the issue about us getting rid of the vendors from the street, because we've made it clear that it is not so. We have spoken openly about it, but until now, they still to campaign on that. I don't know whether it has any resonance, but I don't think so. Secondly, they are campaigning that we're breaking down the squatters on Front Row and different parts of Sophia, etc. We met with the people there. We assured them that we'll work with them. But until we can safely accommodate people elsewhere, they have nothing, absolutely nothing to worry about. But now, recently, they have invented a new one. And so after the experience at Plum Park with the candidate, they sent in Christopher Jones to talk about create a new thing now, a new fear element. So he spoke there and he said that there are lots of properties that are vacant in the city and that people were not paying their rates and taxes, and it's mainly the business community. Most poor people don't have much rates and taxes to pay. So that they, under APNU, they gave an amnesty, and if the PPP is there, one, the PPP will raise rates. So we made it clear that we're the only party that contested the 2018 elections that said we will not raise rates, and we're doing so again. It's a lie that we have no plan to increase rates. But look at this report here. This was in October 2nd, 2018. 335 million contracts signed for updated property valuation system. This is what Vulcan did. Signed a contract in October of 2018 to increase the property valuation in the country. So if the valuation was increased for your property, even with the same rates, they will argue that they didn't change the rates. But since it's ad valorem, it's a percentage of, it will be a percentage of a higher number because your property values would have been increased. This is the evidence that APNU was planning it. We campaigned against this in 2018, that this will not happen. So they had planned to raise rates. The only reason that this didn't happen is the PPP filed the 2018 local government elections. We filed a no confidence motion immediately thereafter, and we won the 2020 elections. Or by now, across the country, people would have seen massive increases in their property taxes. Look, the evidence is here. October 2nd, 2018. So Christopher Jones was in bed in the bosom of the APNU at that time, lying now to the people of the city and to the country that we plan to raise rates. And this was not a 335 million valuation exercise for Georgetown alone. It was for New Amsterdam, for Linden, and the rest of the country. Because in New Amsterdam, they had already done a pilot scheme, valuation scheme, that led to the increase in taxes in New Amsterdam. By the same group had done a pilot scheme. So if any party is going to raise your rates and taxes, it's APNU. This is what they had planned. They never got to implement it because we filed a no confidence motion and we defeated them in 2020. So that's one. Two, let's talk about the amnesty. The amnesty, a lot of the people in City Hall and the APNU councillors, they got rich. It was a scheme. They made tons of money on the amnesty. And it happened mainly with the business community. Some people owed 50 million in back taxes. Not ordinary people in a home. Lots of business people own a lot of taxes from back years. So what they did, instead of applying a standard rate across and say, we're waiving 25% across the board for everyone, they negotiated with everyone. A businessman had to go in, you negotiated a deal with them. You have 50 million to pay, you pay 2 million to the city council, you get 48 million waived, but of the 48 million, you give somebody $2 million. I know because some of the businessmen said that to us. So they got all their back taxes cleared for pittance, but the city did not collect the money. It went to individuals because they took a bribe. And Christopher Jones knows about this. APNU knows about this. So to go and tell the people in Plum Park and now say this at the national level, imagine today, they put that out in a release as message to the people of Georgetown. Beware about taxes. PPP will raise taxes. And two, that remember the valuation, the waiver we give, the amnesty. It's a shameless act on the part of APNU. And only people who are now aware of their deceit would buy into this sort of thing. So this is it. And the last person who should be carrying this message should be Christopher Jones. Now I have here another article in September 30th, 2020. It says Christopher Jones gifted state lands twice. Trevor Benn waives land fees. So this is I think it's the Kaichor News. Christopher Jones gifted state lands twice. Trevor Benn waived land fees. Now, it seems as though the land that was given to him was to build a polyclinic on the land, and they didn't know. So then they had to take it back and give him another piece of land. And then what happened, the land that they gave him, you had a family, not an Indian family, an Afro-Guyanese family that had been living there for over 30 years on the land. They bulldozed them so that Christopher Jones could have gotten the land. And it is on this very land that he was supposed to build a barber shop that he got about $6 million from the SLED fund. So this was talking about bulldozing families and getting rid of black families from land. He has a track record of doing that. And talking about land acquisition. So guess what? How creative they've been. They said that same Christopher Jones, and this is apparently, I don't know if he's the intellectual author of this new lie, but this is what they're portraying. So Jagdeo, he said Jagdeo talk about making Guyana a first class area. So what we want is about that we want to remove the ghettos by building new infrastructure in these areas. So then private people can get the lands no longer if you live in these areas. And they mentioned Pontrench Dam as an area, the boulevard that we're building there. Now what Christopher Jones wants, first of all, there are several things about mindset in the APNU that you can deduce from this. First, they are opposed to us making Guyana a world-class country. Doesn't want that. Secondly, it is other people now, smart people want to go and buy up these properties now. But it's up to them to sell. Their value now has, the people who live in these areas, they have a greater value to their property. And it's transported property, and they will determine whether they want to sell it or not. but the whole areas will change. So that is, imagine the narrow-mindedness of it, saying you must keep living in ghetto-like conditions. Jagdeo only wants to improve, or the PPP, is because he's been cussing me, that these areas, they want to improve it because they want businessmen to take your property. People live in those areas, and it's not the whole of South Georgia. And you've already listened to our plans for the city and everything else. They prefer people to live in ghettos. So it's another lie again that they are selling. If anybody is selling out any piece of land that the city owns, in fact, I think they've sold out practically all of the city land that you have, that the city owns. They're very limited amongst of plots left in the whole city. Remember, even the part, the only time we will take land that is in the city is to put in better infrastructure in the city. Like you see the area between Camberville and Prashad Nagar now, that area is going to be a four-lane road and a boulevard there, that sort of thing. We're never going to take city land that they have practically all sold out now. And people, and rest assured that their transported land is not going to be seized by the PP. We never could do that. If anybody wants to do that, it's impossible. The courts will never allow it. PPP don't intend to see it, but to change the face of the entire Georgetown and the country, wherever you live, in all of these areas. So that's the new line now. That's the new line. They said the same thing in New Amsterdam. Oh, that the Ghana shore base will be establishing there, so we need the prime lands in New Amsterdam. Well, any shore base facility will not be established necessarily in New Amsterdam itself, and most of the lands are private there. It will be probably north of the bridge in state lands that are already there, the shore-based facilities. But we are happy that we're moving some of the facilities there so that people in New Amsterdam can work in these communities too, that thousands of new jobs will go into New Amsterdam. They have an anti-development agenda. They're not talking about the four-lane bridge that we would award within a matter of months across the river in Linden. But, oh, we want the lands in Linden now, people private lands. Abstracting that all the private lands that were there along the river, that they practically gave those out to PNC members. Amanza Walton and her brother and sister got 3 plots of land there. The minister, the Figueras got land. The minister who was in charge of land, I forgot her name, the housing minister, Patterson, I think, got land. A number of PNC people got the land in Linden. Very little left. So it's shameful that at this stage they keep coming back with these. And the reason I'm coming back to it is that we must not allow this to succeed this time around. They have gotten away with this for years, misleading people, misleading them by lying to them openly. But the biggest people who are carrying the lie are the ones who are were either egregiously corrupt or the transgressors themselves. So today, they have, I don't know who these people are, some Copeland. I was looking through the press conference and I saw some body named Copeland. And he said the PPP has no place in a democratic society. That is what he tells a press conference today. The PPP civic has no place in a democratic society. We have always fought for freedom and democracy. History is on our side in this matter. We have always fought for freedom in this country. If he looks at his party's track record, he would see the contrast that every single time they've been in office, they've attempted to steal the elections. So if anyone doesn't have a place in a democratic society, is the fossils and that group in the PNC that believe that the only way you should win elections is by bullying people, misleading them, not working for their votes. In this country, we believe in working for people's support. And that is why our party has grown. It's in the ascendancy. It's broadening its reach and its support. And we do this all because of our credibility and hard work for the people of this country. And we're even-handed because we believe that every Guyanese must make progress. That's our approach. If anyone or any party belong to a democratic society, it's the PPP. And for someone to say that about seizing power and all of that stuff, is clearly either he doesn't know or he is dishonest about the history of this country. I saw the Low guy, the economist who is now economist, said that because we care cash grant is a pittance. Can you imagine up to now, a party that took away the $10,000 from people, claiming that $40,000 to our children is a pittance? It's unbelievable that you would still hear this sort of thing from a party that was so callous to take away, steal. I use the word steal from our children because that's what they did. They stole from them. They stole every year billions of dollars from our children. Should be commending this. So my Paul, in speaking about Adam Harris again, about bribery, that we are bribing people. You know, Adam Harris got this obsession with these red jerseys. I spoke about it. So today's press conference, it was back at the red jersey. I think it causes him nightmare. I can see him in the middle of the night waking up and screaming, you know, about these red jerseys. So he was talking about bribes. So my Paul went around the whole thing. People asked about evidence of it. And he said, oh, we're told about this. Of course, no evidence. It's pure nonsense because it bothers them a lot. Well, they don't bribe people to wear green, but you know what? I believe even if they did, people would not want to wear the green because they're a damaged brand. They're a brand associated with stealing elections. They're a brand associated with breaking their promises. They're a brand associated with the most egregious forms of corruption that I can list here today. They're a brand associated with arrogance. When they're in office, nobody could meet them. People know that's why they don't want to, nobody wants to be associated with a brand. So even if I think they could do that, they got one lady, Auntie Daughter, or something like that, talking about PPP. I don't think she even supported the PPP from what I heard historically. One single person talking about something. So they can't even get people to wear the green now. But then he said, if this installed regime believe they're doing so much good and they're a blessing to Ghana, then there's no need for them to coerce, intimidate, and engage in bribery. Hasn't proven anything about coercion. If anything, is APNU has been involved in coercion. coercing people to remove their names from our lists, trying to bully them, take down their flags, anything to do with coercion. He hasn't proven any evidence of bribery, but he says that. And then he says transition, to do like what the APNU is doing. We are going to the people with honesty and decency. And we are going to the people with credible candidates. Now, honesty and decency, you don't associate those with many in APNU. Now, Mahipal himself is not the best person to talk about this. Remember, he had his own trouble. If you Google Mahipal and Google UG missing funds, and you will see what comes up. Just Google that. And decency, all of that, cussing people out. You see them, the trench crapos, we're trench crapo. That's the decency that they have. The PVP trench crapos. And actually it's funny. They think it bothers us, but it's really funny. So decency, honesty, not something you associated with them. You remember Annette Ferguson bullying the man in his own shop. I'm not coming out your place. That's nothing to do with, that's more coercion in your own business place. So this is what they're doing. But going to the people with credible candidates. Now, you recall the Demerara Wave story in the last elections. They have a guy here who, Demerara Wave, 19th of March 2016. Recall of Harding from council to be discussed. Granger wants explanation from Lawrence. They said Granger wanted nothing to do with a person who has been serially charged for molesting children. Now, Valde Lawrence made some excuse about it, and then a number of things came out. This is what happened. Local NGO Red Thread deemed the minister unfit for her portfolio, saying that the minister has to be disciplined and the government needs to find someone who is qualified to head this ministry. This is because she defended this candidate. Granger, when asked, simply said that he would be seeking some amount of explanation into how Harding was selected to be a candidate for local government elections. So all the NGOs came out at that time, including the Red Thread, which is silent now because the government has changed now. Now it's PPP in office. They could have done that at that time because it was their government, the Red Thread. And so now they have no concern. The same candidate has reappeared on as the candidate for constituency 13 in Georgetown. Now, they can choose whoever they want to put. But clearly, this person, he talks about decency and all of that. This candidate has been tainted in the past. They can put the candidate. But the thing is that you can't go and claim to the people in particularly this constituency who know the candidate well, that you have candidates that are of the highest moral standing. And the same thing, we didn't even know, happened in Bartica. Another person who was charged for raping a guy, another candidate there who was contesting in Bartica. Now, why do I mention these things? Because do I believe that people should have a second chance in life? Yes, I do. But when child molestation and raping people, those are things that we are very careful about. And when you go and palaver, basically, like this Mahi Paul is prone to do, about how great they are and how decent they are, and when you look at what really is on offer, you will see some of the same non-performing candidates and a lot of the candidates who are tainted. And I don't know where these NGOs, the GHRA loves to speak about everything under the sun, and the Red Thread and the others. Anytime they hear a little song, once it's, if anything else, they would appear. Trust me, they can run whoever they want. But you let the PPP put up 2 candidates of a similar nature who would be in charge with child molestation or raping of people, a guy. You would see by now the house would have fallen down on us. They'll be out there picketing, the same Red Thread and all of them will be every day. Those would dominate all the talk shows in this country. What has happened? It's been swept under the carpet easily by the complicit media, and many in the complicit media, and all of these so-called NGOs. They say also, they look at, in an attempt to say to Georgetown and the others, oh, because our campaign has been a very long time, APNU has had this, 57 years, so give us a chance now. So they now have to find a reason for saying why people shouldn't give us a chance. So they said they choose an example of Buxton Fowles NDC. That's their new thing now. Oh, the PPP won the NDC in 2018, and they haven't been able to transform. So basically telling people in this area, don't give them a chance. So keep APNU for 100 years in the city. All the corruption and the incompetence and everything else, let's keep it there. That's what they're saying. But the fact is that, yes, we won the Buxton Fowles NDC in 2018. And what happened is that we had 2 years under APNU in the 2018 to 2020 period when nothing happened for these areas. They didn't receive any support from the central government. Then we had a 1.5 years of pandemic. But notwithstanding all of that, today, if you go to that area, you'll see changes. In Beirut, APNU stronghold. Since this government returned to office, we have regularized 300 house lots, and people have their titles to that. That's APNU stronghold, and that's within the NDC. We've just awarded a contract for 8 million water treatment plant that will improve the $8 million, $1.6 billion water treatment plant that will improve the quality of water in this area, in that NDC. We're building an industrial park there that will cost $2 billion, already the park under construction, that will create employment for people in that NDC and other areas. The Minister of Agriculture has been in there several times to work with the farmers. Changes are taking place in that NDC. You're going to have a road, a 4-lane road, later this year that will pass through that NDC. That will be a major development boost for all the lands running along the railway embankment, a transformation of the lands. So they use that as an example, but it's a bad one, because even though we had to contend with APNU and the pandemic from 2018, still changes have been made. That is what we're about. I'm spending time on this because this is all they have to offer. Desperate. And so today, that's what I wanted to do, to make sure that I dismantle all the lies that they're telling. In the press conference, though, they expose something very, very important. I think it's late in the game, and the people who live in these areas must know that Mahipal said that Hague-Blankenburg Development Association, which is a symbol of a light bulb, is a PNC front. So if you live in the area, APNU was ashamed to come in that form. They came in the form of the PNC because of their track record, APNU. So they came in the form of Hague-Blankenburg Development Association. Symbol is the light bulb. He said that today. So if you vote for them, you're voting for APNU. He said the Mora Parika NDC, the soccer tree, is their symbol. That's another PNC APNU outfit. So if you live in that area, don't be misled. He said the Margatu Mirzorgan NDC, that the APNU AFC symbol there is the eagle. And they couldn't, basically, they're coming in a front organ. And then the two-flood potential area, they have a sugarcane with a cutlass as their symbol. Obviously, they couldn't put APNU with the sugarcane symbol because they closed their whale sugar factory there. So they put another group there with a sugarcane and a cutlass as their symbol, and that is the PNC outfit there. So don't be misled if you're in these communities. The PNC is coming in disguise, APNU is coming in disguise. And it's extremely stupid of him to say that 3 days before the elections, because all this subterfuge and the disguise that they were creating, the facade that it's an independent group, now we see that it's APNU's groups there, and they are ashamed to go in the form of APNU in these communities. So they're trying to mislead the residents in those areas. It's a shameful, shameful thing. I saw Amanza Walton mention about how, when asked about the several things, said, oh, Jagdeo apologized for a dead woman's signature on the list. And we have the decency to apologize. And it happened in one area, and I explained how it happened. It happened is that their husband is still a candidate and a supporter of the PPP. She died a few weeks. They had collected signatures before. She died a few weeks before the list was submitted to GCOM, the nomination day. It was not like we resurrected someone from the past. The people were not vigilant enough. Her name went forward. When we discovered this, we replaced her name. We have thousands of people in that area, hundreds of people literally we could put. And so that is what happened. But we have the decency of apologizing. All of the forgery that APNU engaged in right across the country, they don't have the decency to even mention it, I made it clear, and we're a party that should have more of these. Sometimes people dupe you a bit when you have 2,000 candidates and 26,000 backers, and you can't see all of them. The likelihood that somebody will do something on the ground when they go around to sign is higher, notwithstanding that we've been able to present clean lists to GCOM, and they have had a series of transgression. And she uses that and says, that's the environment we function in. And the PPP government is a full-blown dictatorship. Now, anybody who says we're a dictatorship, and in a free country, anybody can say that. But you got to be not just dishonest, but like hyper, super, extremely dishonest if you come from APNU and you say that, having known that they tried to steal the elections. Amanza Walton was part of that plot. She was at the convention center, part of the plot to help to steal the 2020 elections. Speaking about Guyana is in a state of terror and hopelessness. When I travel around this country, people are the most hopeful now. When they lost hope was in those 5 years when they lost thousands of jobs. They're the most hopeful now about our future. They're getting help. They see a government that's engaging, that's addressing their concerns, thousands of new jobs being created, etc. And they talk about jobs too. They talk about they're going to bring new jobs as part of these local government elections to their communities. They didn't do it when they were in office. They took away jobs. How could the city council in Georgetown bring new jobs to people in the city? It's all hogwash. So these are just some of the things. I hope people by now get the drift that APNU will come up with a lot of lies. I want to urge all of those who are looking, particularly the supporters of the PPP and APNU supporters too. I know some of them look at the program, to spread the message that we should not be fooled again. We're carrying a respectful message to all of these communities that I'll talk about in a moment. I just wanted, I saw again Henry Jeffrey saying that the PPP rigged the 2020 elections. And his thing is that we're undermining the city to prove that Afro-Guyanese and PNC are incompetent. Again, another racist thing coming from Henry Jeffrey. Racist. This is how they roll out all these fossils. This guy was 16 years in the PPP as a minister and didn't find us incompetent or racist in the 16 years until he got fired. So he's making it look like the PPP is targeting Afro-Guyanese. Now, I stand by every word about the PNC and its incompetence. But is it by implication Afro-Guyanese who are incompetent? We've been on the record a million times to say that APNU failed Guyana, including Afro-Guyanese. We have the most, if you look at our cabinet, the most competent people, the cabinet and big sectors are run. We have a prime minister who's competent. We have a foreign minister who's competent. That's why he's there. We have a minister of public works who is competent, a minister of home affairs who is competent, a minister of trade, tourism, industry and commerce who is competent. We have a minister of information and a minister of labor who are competent. They are several ministers, and they're all Afro-Guyanese. We have more than half, maybe 60% of our candidates in Georgetown that we're putting up are Afro-Guyanese because we believe they're competent to run the city. Has nothing to do with race, but they will drag us down back to this. And they have a very incompetent person who's Indo-Guyanese as the mayor. He is incompetent and useless too. You have useless people in every race, and you have great people in every race. You know, it's not a preserved, smart, or stupid. I shouldn't be saying smart or stupid because we're campaigning now. But you do have stupid people in every race and in everywhere. So, and it seems as though all the incompetent ones are in the leadership of the PNC. The incompetent ones, they've demonstrated incompetence. The people that they put there. You look at the list and how they performed in the years. Trotman, not a single press conference. Patterson was more busy collecting bangles than anything else. All of that. You've seen the incompetence in Parliament in their speeches and stuff. So he is trying to cleverly trying to make it look, oh, the PP is fighting Afro-Guyanese. It is a PNC APNU that we are claiming is incompetent, never had a plan to change the country. And our team is a multi-ethnic team because we believe competence resides in everyone, and it has no race has a monopoly on competence. And it was Amanza Walton, you remember, who said that Indians are mentally lazy? She was the one who said Indians are mentally lazy. We mustn't forget those kinds of things too. So I wanted to this week not to deal much with oil and gas, but I see Glenn Lyle is now talking about who to vote for and all of that. Normally I ignore him because he's been misleading people a long time with the hope that he could probably, I saw one of the people who organized some small community meeting for him with a smattering of people in Essequibo. Yeah, when I was in Essequibo and spoke with the activists, they said the same guy is on the APNU list of candidates. So I have no doubt that, like the AFC, Glenn Lyle and the others, they're already trying to put together a political party. So they start off by saying, oh, we fight for Ghana, we're fighting Exxon, etc. When you look at the membership of the party, which I'll come to after the local government elections, you'd see half of them were trying to get contracts with Exxon, and a bunch of crooks. But today I'm not going to deal with that. But this guy, clearly, he has made stupidity and ignorance a virtue in his world. And that is something that profoundly bothers me, that people could listen to this nonsense over and over and over again with such great lies. And it bothers me sometimes when reporters, I don't know if they're forced to or carry some of this stuff. So the last time I was here, I was asked by the reporters about the 2% royalty, and that in the financials submitted for the case, Exxon had the 2% royalty as recoverable. So I explained that as far as we're concerned, that the royalty is not recoverable. And if it's portrayed anywhere in the, I had not looked at the financials, but if it's portrayed as recoverable, then that's wrong and should not be there, but I undertook to check it out. And then I said that accounting conventions may dictate that when you present your financials, you do it in a particular manner, which is separate, should be read separately from the contract itself. But more importantly, I asked, this is what I said exactly. Royalty, I think the GRA has made that clear. Has it not? Has GRA not made that clear? I will look into it. And if they have it as a recoverable, then it's wrong. It's not recoverable. Those are the exact quotes. So I had the distinct view that GRA had responded to this, because when the issue came up, GRA had clarified the issue. Now I have a press release from the GRA dated June 27, 2022. This is the press release. Comprehensive press release, several pages that dealt with the whole question of the royalty. I'm not going to read the whole press release, but on point 10 it says, royalty paid to the Guyana government is an expense incurred in the production of oil for the contractors, but is not allowable for the calculation of cost oil. So that alone should have allowed anybody who reads this and had any sense, had they read the press release and done the research, they would have seen that as an expense, it has to be in the financials, but it will not be allowed for cost recovery. It goes on further, and you had more clarification. Royalty is a tax-deductible expense pursuant to Section 16 of the Income Tax Capital 8102 when filing corporation tax in return. And then it goes on to say, however, in this case, because the government under the contract paid the taxes, this will not happen. It goes on to say further under 16, expenses are not tax credits. A tax credit reduces taxes on a dollar-for-dollar basis, while tax deduction will lower your taxable income, thereby allowing for payment of lesser taxes. In 18, it says, it must further be emphasized that financial income is not taxable income. A full explanation about that. If the reporters had only read this that came out on a year before, June 27, 2022, they would, first of all, never should have asked me that question, and two, they should have never written a report on it. And so the Starbuck News carried the same story on that day, June 25th, 2022, explaining the full thing that the Kaieteur News reporters asked me about a couple of days ago, that I said, the accounting convention may demand it reflected in that form, but it shows a clear inability to read financial statements and understand financial statements, that it's done in an anecdotal way. Let me tell you something about these matters. We can't approach the sector in a ignorant, uninformed way, or we become the laughing stock of the world. When you sit in these positions, you have to be very careful. Here, you would expect that newspapers would enlighten the people of the country. Here, it makes the water even more murky by taking things that are clear, that are factual, and then distorting them to suit an agenda. If we don't do this, we can't negotiate with the external groups that come here. We'd be the laughing stock of the world. I'm an economist, a macroeconomist. And even when I speak about microeconomics or like accounting, I'm very cautious because there's a whole set of accounting classifications and a whole range of stuff that I have to seek answers to before I speak definitively. I speak definitively on macroeconomics because I was trained with that. Glenn Lyle hasn't been trained in anything. He hasn't been trained in anything whatsoever. But when you listen to him, he has this great clarity and surety, like a sureness in his voice. He knows everything. It's pure rubbish. And it's so sickening that we have to suffer this in a country like ours. So again, I saw another headline about, this one came out, I don't know when. In 2 years, what Exxon did, again, going back to the financials, clear misunderstanding of the financials. Now I wonder which accountant advises him. Glenn Lyle is not an accountant. In fact, I don't know if he reads and understands any of this stuff. And that's the, it says Jagdeo not sure. A big headline again, front page headline. I don't think I even have it here, but it's a massive headline. Oh, VP Jagdeo unsure if ExxonMobil is recovering 2% royalty and expenses. That's the headline. So anybody believe this is the headline for a paper that couldn't even read the financials and understand or read the clarifications given by the Revenue Authority almost a year ago. It's disgusting. And this is every single day. And he discovers it, you know, some big circle royalty. It's an expense. Discovery. Great to Christopher Columbus, Glenn. So I'm not in any mood to deal with the more nonsense from Kaicho News for there. I still take the reporter's question, by the way. I don't want to disparage the reporters, but this man is a full nutcase, a full nutcase. I just want to come back to one thing, friend, that we're contesting. You've seen what we're contesting. We've been campaigning. They have an issue with their finale and myself, the president and myself. We are supporting our candidates. We're going around in support of our candidates. If Granger didn't do that, that's because Granger and the others either had no energy to do it or didn't care. We care enough about our country and our communities to go and speak in support of our candidates. We care enough about every corner of this country. Linden, New Amsterdam, South Georgetown, everywhere. We care. We could have easily avoided going into some areas and be content with like winning overwhelmingly in PPP strongholds. But that's not the nature of the PPP, nor is it because we want to dominate. We care enough to go out there and support our candidates. And we're going out there to say that the message, the manifesto that is produced by candidates that go under the PPP civic brand, which is the party with a party symbol there, the cup, and we're urging people to vote for that brand, that these promises were vetted with us and we stand behind them. Every community meeting we go to, we want people to see us there to know that we stand behind these promises. And that's why we're going out in support of the candidates. I can't care too much if they don't want to go out and support their candidates. And you see what's happening now. A lot of their candidates are going like Mr. Trench Crapo, going in his own vehicle at the back and complaining to people in Plum Park. So thank you very much.
Just a few questions. Justice Prasad issued a stay of execution today regarding the insurance matter. Could you provide your preliminary thoughts on whether this might add some type of relief to investors as they look into the investment climate? Secondly, I noted yesterday that the president, as well as yourself and the team, had discussions with companies such as BlackRock, Bank of America, etc. Can you shed some light on what they might have asked for and what Guyana would have proposed and what we highlighted to them about the investment climate here? And on your comment regarding the political climate, given what you explained about the APNU, its mindset, its political philosophies, do you think that because of the emergence of the oil and gas industry, we're seeing inflamed tensions, bigger fractures between the APNU and the PPP?
Okay. So we met with, it was an impressive group. They probably have maybe $1 trillion in combined management. That group that came yesterday, it was a very high power group. And we are pleased that these groups are coming to Guyana looking for opportunities here, financing opportunities, and possibly later maybe equity opportunities in the country. So this group didn't come at our invitation. They came because they wanted to explore the climate here in Guyana. And just to have such a high power mission is a great thing for our country. The reach that they have globally is a major one. And so right now, we're starting to emerge into those circles, the global circles, where major things happen. So we explained a lot about the industry, what our plans are for the oil and gas industry, what our plans are for infrastructure development, social services, the new industries in agriculture, manufacturing, addressing issues of cross-border trade, our international relations, and financing options, strengthening management capabilities. I spoke about the deepening of our financial system here in Guyana. That is to bring greater competition, not because they will participate in, but we haven't given out a commercial bank license, a new commercial bank license, since I was Minister of Finance, which was a long time back. We've given out some depository taking institutions. And so we're looking to deepen our financial system to make more investable capital available in Guyana, not for the government necessarily, but for the private sector too. But we believe that because these companies are on the cutting edge of global finances, and many of the tools that they use, like the derivatives market, etc., these are very complex, but could be adopted to make the instruments in Guyana, the financial instruments, more attractive to lots of our companies, because right now it's just a straightforward loan. So a lot of them could probably get involved on the equity side by understanding companies taking an equity share, but also to make other forms of financing that are differently structured, but that would enable long-term investments at a more competitive interest rate, that would be needed here. So we discussed that a lot about future growth of our own markets for management of the funds in the oil and gas sector. But this is not now, in the outer years. Right now, we're not receiving a lot of money. The fund is not a big fund. By 2027, 28, 2030, that's when large sums will accumulate in the fund. So we need to strengthen the capability of the board of directors and the management systems there, the ones under the Natural Resources Fund Act, to manage this. So it was a broad-ranging discussion about Guyana and greater financial sophistication in the future, which is necessary if we're going to grow. We need to keep pace. The real economy can only keep growing if we have a more sophisticated financial sector. So that was the first issue. What was the first one? Oh yes, on the stay of execution. The last time, accepting to say that I supported the Attorney General's comments on the issue that was made in relation to EPA. I avoided speaking too much about the merits of the case. I spoke about its potential impact globally. So I don't want to get involved again on the merits of the case. These have been identified with lawyers from both sides believing they have a strong case. That has been ventilated. I think our people, this decision may go down well globally, but we need to ensure. Decisions, the judiciary has to act fairly in every case. We can't tell the judiciary what positions to make, and they must now just make positions because of some international imperative. But if the international investors believe that, or not just international, we're not just doing this for them, but local people too, if they can get a fair, predictable, not predictable decision, but predictability in terms of the application of the law, predictable, objective judiciary, then it lends great confidence to local as well as foreign investors. And that's all we're seeking, because in a modern, sophisticated jurisdiction too, that is a crucial thing. Dispute resolution and a fair judiciary are important factors in your ability to attract investments and to have locals even make investments. We have an external review which has greatly enhanced our credibility. That's the CCJ too. So as I said before, we don't want, I don't want to say, oh, this is good and this is bad, because sometimes people think that's what we want. On the third issue that the fractures in our society now or the campaigning between us and APNU, it's because of oil and gas. For those people who don't have a more historic view of the changes, when our country, when we had less, it was even worse. In the early days, when we had to pay back almost all of the APNU's debt, and we had very little money to pay the debts and do the development tasks, we didn't have a growing middle class, or people didn't have homes. Since the time, the 90s, we've had over 100,000 new homes. That means people have houses. At that, in the early period, we had probably less than 50,000 vehicles or in the whole country, less than that. Now you have hundreds of thousands of vehicles. People have access to electricity, they have title. Our country has grown, the middle class has grown. We had extremely wealthy and all of us poor. Our middle class has grown over the years. And stability, political stability has grown too. That is why in the 90s, if APNU wanted, they could put 5,000 people on the street within half a day. Today, if Norton struggles, look at the last 2020 elections, they were urging people to come out, and 200 persons came out to protest after they said they won the elections. So I don't see a bigger fracture. I see us even getting closer, people understanding now. Our country is changing, our people are looking to improve their lives, and every single day that passes, APNU's lies are being exposed, and people realize that they've taken them historically for a long ride, that you're not going to tell them anymore that the PPP don't care about you, and you care, and the PPP is racist, and when you never touch people, you wouldn't even walk in their communities, wouldn't see them. Those excuses are not going to hold any longer. So I don't think oil and gas has changed that, any of that, made it worse. Made it worse. I don't think it has made it worse. The new excuse is, oh, we are taking all the money. That is why we're doing things. You know, we have made more commitments than we have. The 12 hospitals alone that we're starting to construct are about 2 years of the oil and gas money, the first 2 years of the oil and gas money. It's about 600 million for those 12 hospitals in New Amsterdam, at Ogle here, in different parts of the country, you know, the ones we already mentioned, in regions 1, 7, 8, and 9, and then all the coastal regions. $600 million US for those, but we're investing those in our people. And that's 2 years nearly of the oil and gas money, the first 2 years. So people think we have a lot of money now, and that's why they're saying to people, oh, billions of dollars out there. It's not as yet. Later it will come. Okay, yes.
I have two final questions. Speaking to the investments that you know to build the hospitals, how do you respond to concerns that the government seems to be wrapping up a lot of debt because of the emergence of the oil and gas industry? And secondly, how do you respond to those stakeholders who might say there needs to be more disclosures in terms of expenses from the oil and gas industry? Not just expenses, but how decisions are being made in the oil and gas industry from the respective agencies. How do you respond to those?
So I don't know what you mean by the last one. How decisions are made in respect. We dealt with already the issue of greater monitoring in the new PSA, if that's what you had in mind.
No. So what I'm referring to is ExxonMobil has seen a way to make disclosures to their shareholders about how much they plan to invest in Guyana, etc. The PSA allows for government to have access quarterly or sometimes or annual basis in terms of the expenses or the projected budgets that oil companies would make over time.
Yeah, so, okay, so it's the same thing about greater transparency surrounding their spending, etc., that we spoke of in the past, and a dedicated focus on that once we get past. We have put quite a bit of the information on the line now. We still have, I told you, that we still have to step up with the new PSA and with some of the changes we're making on enhancing our real-time monitoring, on greater transparency surrounding costs in the entity, etc. So it's something we're aware of that we have to focus on more in the future, getting much more of this. A lot of this information is available, but it's available through third party. That is them making the releases rather than Guyana doing it ourselves. So we'll come back to that in a moment. What was it?
And the other was the concern that seems to be in the public domain now that the government is perhaps racking up a lot of those.
Oh, the debt. Yeah, so the debt. So we took our debt down. If you look at Carl Greenidge's affidavit in the green mining construction arbitration, the letter is in the public domain. It says our stock of debt was 153% of revenue. If you go to that, I want you to look at that. Please look at that today, all the reporters. Carl Greenidge's affidavit under the green mining construction, that 153% of revenue went to service debt, and the debt was 913% of GDP. Our debt today is about maybe 12% of GDP. One of the lowest figures in the world. And we're using, with all the with borrowing and everything, and we're using about 7-8% of revenue to service debt. So it's based on a capacity to service debt. Our total outstanding debt will be less than 1 year of future revenue in the outer year. Very few countries can have that debt profile. In addition to that, we have not contracted any private variable interest loan. We have 2 variable interest loans, and they're both from the IFIs, the multilateral financial institutions. All the other loans are fixed rate loans, so we don't have to worry about interest rate escalation now. And that's largely because of what happened in history and our strong management of debt historically. So if you look at our history, you will see one thing that the PPP has done. This is one of our greatest successes that we never speak enough about. People talk about the roads and water and stuff. We took a bankrupt country and restored it to financial viability, and this was even before oil and gas. Before oil and gas, it was about 45% of GDP, down from 913% of GDP. And this was before we found oil and gas, one of the lowest figures still in the world. The United States debt is about, and Europe is about 100% of GDP. And before oil and gas, we took ours down to about 45% of GDP. So that is something that doesn't come out. I see a lot of people talking about it. Our capacity to repay is vastly enhanced. And when we borrow to invest in things that matter. We can pay it back easily. Our health system, the roads, the power plants, the ports, things that are capital. We don't borrow to eat. We don't borrow to eat. We borrow to build the capital stock of this country so our people can benefit. They can use that to create new industries and new jobs, because that's the foundation, the ports, the power plants, the roads, the other type of infrastructure, modern water systems, the ICT system, better government services around the country. We borrow for greater security. We're now putting in cameras around the country, a smart country program that would be able to track criminal activities anywhere in Guyana in real time, know who is there and stuff, because security of our people is vital in the future. So those are the things we're borrowing for, but our capacity is, we have the capacity to repay.
Given that Guyana was recently elected to a seat on the UN Security Council, I was wondering if there's anything right now that the government is holding for its agenda with respect to the council, and if it thinks it will need to seek any sort of action or resolution with respect to the water controversy council.
These are matters that would be premature. You heard a lot of that goes to the Security Council, often come from, it's an agenda that is what's happening around the world. So a significant part of the Security Council agenda will be determined there. Guyana, you heard what we campaign on, a platform of peace, global peace, security, and all of that. It's premature to go beyond that at this stage. I want it to remain with our campaign messages which were read out, our presentation when we contested the seat for the Security Council. And that should dominate what we intend to do. Whether we will go for specific issues, that is yet to be determined.
Do you see, with respect to the water controversy, do you think that this could have influenced the decision by Petrobras not to bid in our offshore launch?
Absolutely not. The Petrobras spoke with me in Houston when I went to that Sarah Week. I think I reported that at one of my earlier press conferences. And they said that they had a massive drilling program just east of us in Brazilian territory offshore in the Atlantic. And their carefully examining the seismic here, and they're a bit excited about what they've seen from our seismic here, and there's a belief that the oil goes all the way, or the oil belt, if I can call it that, goes all the way into their territory. So that was one of the reasons why they will not want to participate here, because of their own drilling program there. Now, President Ali spoke with President Lula, and he was there. I told you, I also had the chance to speak to him briefly on the phone, President Lula, and President Ali mentioned to me that the President of Brazil is very much interested in Petrobras having a participation here. I don't know in what form that will happen, but he's very interested in it. So when we meet with him further, or his people, we will explore that interest.
Exxon about why they had not yet made a final investment decision, and they seem to have gotten the understanding that the government intends to take some things to Parliament before they make a final investment decision. Could you speak to what specifically?
Yes, it's going. It is basically the framework for the extension of the gas field. Liza 1, that supplies the gas, the extension of the life of that field by 10 years. Right now, the current license would expire within 12 years. And for that project to be viable, we have to have at least a 20 years supply of gas. We ourselves don't want, after 12 years, the investment we make in our power plant or our NGL facility, which are owned by the government, don't have any gas coming in. So that's all, the framework. But the project is moving apace.
Okay, one option. Exxon, for one, had already said that they hadn't decided yet whether they would pay for the option because they were waiting to see what about the finalized model contract
Okay.
and the revision of the Petroleum Act. So don't you think it's cutting it a bit close with respect to the fact that the submission deadline is next month?
Yes.
July 15th?
Yes, and so it's very tight now, and to be frank with you, the local government elections interfered a bit with it, and also the drafting is taking time. We've had a lot of feedback on the law, not so much the PSA, but on the legislation itself. So we are going to return to this in earnest in a couple of days' time. We have to get back to that. If it is, I don't want to be quoted as saying there will be an extension, but we made a commitment to have these two documents available to the investors before they put in final bids. We're not going to waver on that commitment. We believe that our word is important in the markets around the world that people see. So those documents will be in place, and they would have adequate time to study those and then make their bid, whatever the timing is.
The reason I ask is because we do usually have to give a period of consultation here for like public comment.
Yes, but all of that will be done. So I'm hoping, I gather that the first draft of the law has been submitted now, just a couple days ago.
Okay, and just one more thing, with respect to the obligation to borrow from Exxon Bank to help support the gas energy project, I was wondering if you could say what exactly is the amount, because there is an amount in like budget documents, but I wanted to know if any of that you're seeking as grant funding instead of loan.
No, we're not seeking grant funding. We're seeking a loan for the, it's the total project is about $760 million. So we have made a down payment from the Treasury of about $100 million. So the balance we are hoping to get from Exim. Yes, please. Oh, I can't give you an update now because we have not addressed any of that. I don't know whether the evaluation has been completed as yet because I'm not focused on that now. So, and I don't think many of us are focused on it. It will happen. You will get an update next week after the local government elections. I didn't.
Before putting out for bids, did the government ever consider it was viable to sell it on like shares to the locals?
Viable to sell it in shares now? So you saw from a single investor what price we got. And Starbuck News after Kaichur News saying it was a corrupt project, secret investors. Not a secret investor has been proven by Glenn Lal. He said they are secret investors. I challenge him. By the way, I challenge him to produce a single secret investor. He ignored it, but he has no credibility. And two, I had challenged him to make public within 2 weeks, that was about 2 months ago, the company that would buy solar power or supply solar power 3 cents per kilowatt hour that he knew of. He didn't make that public too. Not a lie of his. So then you wanted us to sell it for 55. The highest bid came in at that level. If from a single investor you get that, where do you think you're going to get the price per share? What would you set the price of per share at? What do you think the price in your valuation? Should we set it at $90 to the Guyanese or $55? And then the next thing is that if somebody close to the PPP bought some of the shares, next thing you're going to hear Jagdeo sell the shares to a PPP person. Like what they are doing now, as though I see them pointing out, first it was Afro-Guyanese can't get contracts. Now I see them circling some of our candidates and saying they're getting contracts, as though when they're PPP, they shouldn't be getting any contracts in the country. They must give up all things and give it to APNU only. So first it was Afro-Guyanese can't get contracts. Now if you're Afro-Guyanese and PPP, you mustn't get the contracts. So they're circling all the people. So this is the same thing. No matter what we do, the crazy Glenn Lal is just looking to recover from the lies he told consistently for nearly 10 years about this project. As menu of lies, hundreds of Kaichur News lying reports about the project. He's trying to recover by coming up with all these shenanigans. The fact is that we went out to an open process. You see the results. We've disproved all of his lies about the project over time. And time is the only thing sometimes that cures some of these lies that he's been telling. So we're proceeding with individuals. Which dam? Where? Oh. Oh, okay. So the company, we've asked to see the company. It's not just that. They promised the president a bridge to do some work there. This company, when they the manganese plant was started. It was Reunion. It was a Canadian company. I went there, visited with them because we wanted to get more jobs in Matthews Ridge, and this was a possibility of opening. President Ramatar, who was contesting at that same period, I went with me. They made a lot of promises that they will keep the community, upkeep the community, etc. Reunion then sold out to the Chinese, Bosai. So somehow they believe that, Bosai believes that the commitments no longer hold. But the commitments have to be met because they got quite a bit of concessions as part of the, if you look at the agreement that we made public now, the one that is on the ministry site, you will see they get fiscal concessions for the operations there. So that is what, not just that one thing, but the road, but several other things they're supposed to do. So I undertook to get them to make sure that they do meet their commitments. So I'm not on the specific issue, but we are doing additional roads in the area, the road into the school that they mentioned, etc. But there are not one issue, several issues there that company has to comply with in Matthews Ridge, because the commitments were made by Reunion. Right.
Just one final question for you. You know, one is election, local government election. People are heading to vote. I know the government is doing a lot of cash grants and so forth to help our families. There's some that are still living like this. Unfortunately, cash grant might help. They're still in a state that, you know, they can't really sustain a family. But you want to assure them, you know, that things will be. What do you have to say to those persons?
Well, the thing is that the cash grant was a commitment we made in opposition to return that to our children and increase it, and we are fulfilling our promise. I hear a lot of hullabaloo about this cash grant. The APNU now took it away, and they have the audacity to tell us when to pay the cash grant and all of that stuff. They have the audacity, shamelessly, they took it away. And so I don't waste my time behind that. The cash grant is not to, the enhancing people's livelihoods is a different matter. We made it clear that the communities in which they live have to see development. The roads are important, their drains are important, the street lights are important that we made commitment for. And then job creation in these communities itself, until we can move people through more training into more permanent jobs. That is why a lot of the work now that we're giving out, we're giving it back to the communities, so you do community type of infrastructure and involvement. People are cleaning their own drains, so they get some employment opportunities. So a lot of those families you're talking about, we have to work to ensure that they're trained, they're retooled, and then to find jobs for people, which is what we're working on. The 14,000 jobs went to poor people, a lot of women who are now working, the same people you're talking about. Many are single parents. So now they can take care, they get work for 10 days, they can take care of their children. We're now looking to see a model where daycare centers, we don't want to take this over in government, but we want to assist communities to run daycare centers where we can help them with the staffing and even help them put up buildings. But we want it run privately, because the last thing we want is to start taking care of children. You hire people, they don't perform their tasks, something happens with the children, you get the blame too. It's better that people take charge on their own. We often, these things are very hard to manage from the central government level. You never know what will happen in communities. And yesterday again, we had another tragic fire. Look what happened in Mahaika. You know, so unfortunate that kids lost their lives again. And so this is the sort of thing. So we want to work with people in the community. So the cash grant wasn't designed to take people out of poverty. It's the jobs and the training and expanding the economy that will do that we're working on too.
they have chosen not to sign on to a code of conduct that would cause them to have some sort of discipline. They have chosen to fan out across Guyana, attacking people like hyenas, with the opposition leader himself responding to the president by attacking the First Lady. How does the PPP plan to address these issues as the elections come? You got a few more days to Monday. How is the PPP going to protect their candidates? How the First Lady, for instance, violent, vicious attack on the First Lady by the opposition leader. How does the PPP plan to address that?
Yeah, so first of all, a lot of their actions belie what they say. And so today you saw them there decked out at a press conference talking about decency and civility. And then when you match that with what's happening on the ground, their campaign, by the same individuals often, it tells a different story. And this has always been the duality of APNU. It has an image that it's working for progress, but it's downright vile in the campaigning and in the communities by spreading lies and disparaging people, character level, and all of that stuff. It's a historic thing. Personally, I'm considered Satan. I'm telling you, the most corrupt man in the country. On their platforms, they openly talk about it, that I'm gay, spreading rumors I'm gay. A whole range of things. If you look at their political platforms, this is like with all their leaders there, they do this. And so, look at Georgetown. It was Irfan Ali and Jagdeo again criticizing us, not talking on the launch of their campaign. So it's nothing new, but it took a new low when the leader of the opposition, Mr. Norton, went after the First Lady in a vile way, knowing she would not be able to defend herself because she's not part of the politics and the campaign. It's a disgusting thing by a very small-minded man. Small-minded man. He has this way of, I don't know if he hates women or he just believes he can bully them. 3 general secretaries of his party, 3 women. He's practically forced all of them out of his party. He then, Barbara Pilgrim, he referred to her and do nothing about it. Just imagine if one of us had said that in relation to APNU person, the First Lady. You would have had now an outcry by some of the same cowards, the cowards who pretend to see GHRA and all of these cowards who sit down there only waiting for something to happen. It's the same thing like with the pedophiles. So I would leave it to the people of this country to judge Norton and the others. I'll leave it. And this is not just Norton. Norton needs to be condemned here, but all of the others. They say the vilest things about people at a personal level, and they get away with it. And they make it almost a virtue of it, and then they come and present themselves as holier than thou. For extremely, extremely vile people. So we just condemn them and we move on. And I hope that before now on Monday, we'll see those NGOs that talk about saving our children and protecting our children from pedophiles, people who molest our children, that they will say something about it. And those who claim they protect women and want women advancement, that they too will come out and condemn APNU for their vile statements they've made. I'm looking, the country should look at it too. And the media should ask them, call them and ask them what they have to say about it. You want to bet they say they haven't read it before? Like GHRA said, they didn't read the Ogunse statement as yet, after 2 weeks, but they're reading everything else under the sun. And I hope that the media will do that. Every media house should call and ask about it, about these two things. Thank you very much.